is from the very soul of the 17th century, composers that influenced J.S. Bach himself using real natural trumpets. And for this particular project, we've been really pleased to welcome the Marian Consort for our collaboration. Having those singers just really sets off what we do on the trumpet, and also how we blend with the other groups of the orchestra. The music is profound, it's exciting, it's angelic, heroic, and really fabulous to be involved with. Inspiring Bach is the next phase of our Guts and Glory project, which we started 4 or 5 years ago now, using real natural trumpets, so no finger holes, no valves, using large mouthpieces, copies of historical mouthpieces. And this has a big impact on how we play as an ensemble. And one of the things that we wanted to do when we were doing the last project was to bring in more musicians, get a different take on how we work. And for this particular project, we've been really pleased to welcome the Marian Consort.
It's been really nice to work with a full, complete other group without anyone getting in the middle. And it's just us finding our ways, how to do it, what we're looking for. We're finding our identities separately and together. And we're putting the trumpets as the excuse to do this.
And for us, this is the first time that we've worked with ventless trumpets. And we'd known a little bit about them thanks to Will and Spiritato. But all of these questions and maybe concerns that I had, again, really weren't substantiated. They didn't materialize. If anything, it was the opposite. It made so much more sense because the colors and the sonorities and the keys that the composers choose to use are all based around the instruments.
I love the sound of anything that's pre-industrial and handmade and therefore very human. And I think that is something which can really speak to people and inspire people to kind of think outside of the box that they're in. I hope we can do that.
Working with the singers in particular, they just add so much to the texture, and we really are singers but with brass instruments in front of us. The way we play our instrument is so vocal. It's great to be able to hear how it should be done first and then be able to mimic it. And there are times when it happens the other way around and we play it first and then we hear it perhaps how it should have been, or in a second guise, if you like.
I think every other concert or project I've done has had the trumpets with holes. So it's a very noticeable change in the sound. It's just definitely a clearer, stronger, brighter sound, but the tuning is definitely something for me that I'm still trying to, come to terms with, I guess. I'm trying to understand it.
It's quite normal, I think, for singers to do adjusting pitch-wise in kind of early stuff, but also in more modern stuff as well. So I think I'm probably just kind of going with it rather than really consciously making big changes.
We thought that tuning and things would be a big hurdle and it would be something we'd have to work very hard on, but actually just through the process of getting to know the music and getting to know each other's ensembles, actually a lot of that just really kind of fell into place very naturally.
Now this is a new level, adding the singers, and it turns out maybe that's one of the solutions. I'm not saying it's the solution, but it's definitely helping us to lift this even more, this idea of the ventless trumpets and the gut strings and the text and all this beautiful music together.
it does certainly feel in some parts of this project as though we're experimenting with what it would sound like or feel like to sing almost like a brass instrument. Thinking particularly of the Johann Christoph Bach piece, in which sort of we start off intoning on a single note in a very kind of rhythmically insistent way, almost like the beginning of a fanfare or something like that.
It begins with this very military, old Practica style early trumpet fanfares. You can almost imagine them being improvised. And then later it becomes more clarino and the parts become more divided. There's the clarino high trumpet parts portraying the heaven, and the lower trumpet parts portraying earth and war. And it's great to try and see where one begins and the other ends, because there's a war in heaven. So what do we do about that? So it makes the symbolism of this piece particularly interesting.
All the music we're playing comes from the middle of the 1600s, and this was really a time where there had been a huge disaster in Central Europe. There was the 30 Years' War, and as many as 8 million people died when the population of Europe at the time was not as high as it is today, obviously. So there's a huge impact, and I really feel that after the war ended, there was a sense that there needed some real peace and calm, and composers really delivered that. All our composers were, to some degree, an influence on J.S. Bach himself. And it's just been a wonderful opportunity to discover these cantatas, these very large-scale works that require these amazing large forces.
It's great to be a part of a team of 5 ventless trumpets. We don't get the chance to do this very often. I'm really enjoying playing with the string section, with the gut strings and that whole section, and just finding the sound together.
One of my favourite things about this project as a viola player is the fact that there are 4 of us, which creates such a rich middle to the string sound. And we're having our instruments strung with equal tension, which just means that basically we have the same tension over the 4 strings, which means for us that we have a nice fat G on our instrument.
I'm here with my dulcian, and it's really nice to explore the repertoire where composers of the late 17th century, well, middle of the 17th century, were really fond of adding a fagotto part to be played on a dulcian or possibly an early bassoon, especially to accompany the string sections. So in these pieces, actually, I often switch role a little bit from playing with the trumpets, but nearly more often with the singers or with the strings, and that's a really exciting role to have.
The instrument I'm holding here, the famous Baroque cello, is basically a modern invention. Hardly anyone ever played it over hands. You do get a completely different sound if you play it underhand. If you look at all the pictures from the 17th and 18th century, I would challenge anyone to, well, I'd love to see a picture of someone playing the bow like that. it doesn't really matter, but it does inspire us to approach the music in a different way and to find a different aesthetic from what we might achieve with an overhand approach. And I hope that that's just one of the ways in which, as well as just looking really carefully at the music that we're playing, we can try and keep the music fresh and challenge people to listen differently.
Obviously, this is still the beginning of a process, and the more projects we do, the more questions we have and the more open-minded we get, and we would really like other people to get involved in the conversation and get involved in playing with us and ask questions, and if you have suggestions, we are very open for that as well.
It's been an incredible experience to play really with a sound in our ears that is perhaps not one that we're accustomed to as 21st century beings, and it's made a massive impact on how we're working together as a group. It's been a great joy to do.